Okay, we are live. And this is where I know I prefer having a little e-cam thing because it drags things in a lot faster. Okay. Yeah, let me tell it.
I'm pretty sure they can hear you though, too, right
Yeah,
now.
I think they can. I think so. We're going to go. So we're going to go up so everybody can see us.
We're gonna go live.
Go live. Hi, everybody.
I'm
We're
pretty
live.
sure they could hear us. They might not have been able to see us, but they could hear us.
Yes, people, we're live. We're live. Hi,
We're live.
everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna open up the iPad so I can see who's on. We got two people on. Hi, and welcome. Welcome. We actually did an official invite because I have found out from all the groups that I listen into that what LinkedIn is doing now, LinkedIn wants you to actually use its events. So instead of how we would put stuff up normally, right? LinkedIn doesn't want you to do that. It wants you to use events and allow the events to do the thing. So that's a LinkedIn thing.
Oh, so is that a workaround for me to do my live at the start of the first Friday of the month if they won't let me go live
because
directly?
if you send people the invite, you put up the invitation, and wherever it is you are, you will be like, if you can beam to YouTube, you put that in that link right there, and then they'll come and they'll join you. That is the workaround.
Oh, okay. Well, see, look, this has already been useful for today. We're done. Like the first Friday of the month, if they won't let me go live.
You send people the invite,
and
I'm turning you put up the invitation, and wherever it is.
There we go. Okay, there. I was like, you know me.
Yeah,
me and
I know
ears.
You can't do two sounds. Your ears. You can't do two sets of sounds. So I've got that going. So I can see. So yes,
okay, perfect.
That is the way that works.
They still won't. I could not get them to approve it yet.
I told you how long it took me.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, that's good. First Friday. So that's good to know. See, a little tip for everybody right off the bat.
Yes, use the events. That's what they're doing now. That's where they want everybody to go. So that's what they're pushing. So even when you put up long video content, it doesn't work well for you. It's better to do short snippets because short snippets they will keep promoting.
Oh, yeah. Well, mine's about 10-minute ones, but we'll figure it out. We'll look at it. Well, welcome. We'll get started here with let's continue the conversation. My name is Trisha Broderick, and this is Lizzie Morris. And how this came about is honestly different than what either of us does kind of in a traditional professional sense when we do training and we do coaching for people. We've been friends for many years. We've actually had conversations about difficult topics for years. Like this wasn't a George Floyd was killed in 2020 and we started having these conversations. We've had hotel evenings in the hallway outside and in passing as we're going past each other. So one day we were having a tough conversation about different topics, and Lizzie said, I wish this is what I wish people could hear, is just how we're able to have this conversation. And in that moment I went, well, why can't they? let's put it out there. And so people can hear a conversation where we learn, where we say the wrong thing sometimes, where we explore topics and engage because we feel this is what's important.
Right, exactly. And our topic today is intersectionality. As you guys can see right there. Hold on, I'm going to pull Trisha out for a second so you get the full look. There you go. So intersectionality, is it a thing or is it not a thing? What do you think? Hey, Avinash, that is what we're going to talk about today. So it's going to be interesting to hear what everybody has to say about that, because that's what we're going to talk about. Come back in, Trish.
I'm back.
Yeah. And she's back.
Are we going to play the video first?
Yeah, I think it's good. So we're going to play the video that is going to explain to you now what intersectionality is. So you will hear it from the person who came up with the concept. And a lot of people may not even know that she was the person who came up with the concept. So I'm going to share a screen so you guys can actually listen to, as in hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, which I think is really, really important. So let's share that for you.
I have not seen this, so I'm excited.
Oh, cool. So here we go. I'm going to make it all big on the screen
I'll have
here.
2 learnings in like less than 5 minutes.
Intersectionality is just a metaphor for understanding the ways that multiple forms of inequality or disadvantage sometimes compound themselves, and they create obstacles that often are not understood within conventional ways of thinking about anti-racism or feminism or whatever social justice advocacy structures we have. Intersectionality isn't so much a grand theory, it's a prism for understanding certain kinds of problems. African American girls are 6 times more likely to be suspended than white girls. That's probably a race and a gender problem. It's not just a race problem, it's not just a gender problem. So I encourage people to think about how the convergence of race stereotypes or gender stereotypes might actually play out in the classroom, between teachers and students, between students and other students, between students and administrators, and commit themselves to understanding that as a way of intervening and providing equal educational opportunity for all students, regardless of their identities. Identity isn't simply a self-contained unit, it is a relationship between people in history, people in communities, people in institutions. So schools do a good job when they understand that and when they commit themselves to curricular development, to opportunities in the school for all students to understand the histories that have brought us to this particular moment. You can't change outcomes without understanding how they've come about. So independent schools can take the lead on that to be responsive to their student populations and to the communities out of which the students come.
Don't you just love where technology is today, that we can do that kind of thing? Right? And you're like, well, why don't we just hear from the expert? Let's go just find and see what the expert's saying about that and listen to her tell us about what the hell this thing really is. I think that's so powerful, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always want to hear where it's coming, because you get an interesting, it's not just the definition, right? But it's the perspective that you get with that.
Exactly. Because a lot of times we hear these terminologies. I much prefer that. We hear these terminologies that are going on and people using them. People don't get it and they hear it. And sometimes when people hear something new, they feel like somehow it's an attack on them, not understanding it's a way of explaining what is going on. That when somebody comes to the room, they're not always one thing. And because they're not always one thing, you could trigger another part of who they are in them still being their authentic selves. Because we're all about, we're all about in our industry, be authentic, be your authentic self. But do you understand what that means? If I am my authentic self, then all of me comes to the table, all of my strengths, all of my weaknesses, all of my flaws, and all of my triggers. Triggers known to me and triggers that are not known to me until you trigger
it. Your secret self, right?
Right. It's going to come out. And I don't think sometimes that is fully understood. So as much as we are still in Women's Month, right? So we're still in the month of women. I got a little offended yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
From what? Because we got St. Patrick's Day right in the middle of Women's Month. Like, what the hell? We can't get it all to ourselves. There's got to be something else we've got to share it with. So we don't get our.
I have a whole different thing with St. Patrick's Day. So I already eliminated that holiday a long time ago, because that day now is a personal day for me. So I don't even acknowledge St. Patrick's Day.
You don't even acknowledge St. So I was teaching yesterday. And of course, I didn't really remember. I knew it was somewhere, but I hadn't really remembered it because I was really focusing in on Women's Month this month. This like been my primary focus. And I was like, oh, I guess I ought to do something then. So you know what I did? I put together a post that being a woman, we don't need luck. So in essence, we don't need what comes from St. Patrick. So that's kind of the way I twisted it to still make it for women. That because of all the powerful things we bring to the table, you can kind of keep the 4-leaf clover, so to speak. We're bringing
Yeah,
enough
I
as
haven't
well.
celebrated my son's anniversary. My first son, Connor, who passed away on March 17th. So St. Patrick's Day for me has been like non-existent for 17 years. So I don't even like acknowledge it. I don't like. I stay off social media. I don't even, and it's kind of sad. And I guess in one way it's sad. I mean, it's sad in lots of ways, but like, we used to take the day off of work. My husband and I would like party all day long and things like that. And now I just don't even recognize the day. So for me, it's still just Women's Month.
It's still that's still what's going on. That's the primary. But see,
No.
even when you look at if we take one of the things that she talked about, that, and she's obviously, her focus in that conversation was more to make sure you keep educating people on this. But if we take the concept of intersectionality and we bring it to women, right? And you think about it, what we come to the table with. So we come to the table as women. Some of us come as wives and some of us come as mothers, right? So if you're coming to the table that way, we hear maybe a planet or organization has something they're going to do that we know in our gut is detrimental, right, to children and could affect our kids, yet we know it's profitable to an organization and they're driving for profit. You have this place now where, one, you can be triggered, and two, you're having to put away a part of yourself to be able to move forward, right? And that's the part that's very hard, is that we have become, as women, very, very skilled in putting away parts of ourselves.
Apparently every one of my dogs wants to come right near me. So I don't know if you can hear his feet. Like, I'm just going to go with it because it's this week and anything happens, but I'm really hoping someone in my house overhears this and gets the dogs away from me right now.
This is called being at home, Trish. All the things
I know, and
home,
I'm tired of being at home. I do think it's so I will own this. Is I don't think about that often, and that's a privilege, and I'm owning that. I remember thinking, even in like the Women's March, I did participate in the Women's March 4+ years ago, and I had a lot of friends, a lot of people of color friend base that were, I'm not sure I want to participate because is it for white women or is it for for all of us? And I remember thinking in the moment going, but what benefit, like we're all in this together, like why? And I was confused and I was frustrated, right? Like, because I was like, wait, but if you don't participate, this won't be as effective, right? Like in my mind, I needed everybody, right? Like that's how I was looking at it. It didn't occur to me that, and this is privilege, and so I'm owning it, right? It didn't occur to me that there were going to be people going, where were you for this? Where were you for this? Where were you for this issue? Kind of to your point, like I'm a Black woman, I'm a mother, right? Like where were you for these other issues that I was facing that didn't apply to you as much as it did me? But you weren't in it for me then, right? And so there was a little bit of me having to really step back and go, what have I not been showing up in that intersectionality way? What have I not been? Okay, I don't like that, but it's not as bad for me as it is, right? That I haven't been vocal about. I'll take even, she mentioned suspension, which made me laugh because I was suspended in high school for hitting a dude. Called me a name and I didn't like it. And so I warned him. I said, call me it again and I'm laying you out. And he called me it again and I laid him out. And I still got suspended, but like it was worth it. But I stop and I've always known the what is it, 3 or 4 times as likely rate for Black women to die during childbirth. I've known that. I've known that for 17 years when my son died. What have I done about it? Nothing. Right? I haven't spoken up about it. I haven't said anything. I haven't raised money. I haven't been there. And yet I do so much related to neonatal loss and pregnancy loss and taboo topics along those lines. But there was one slice of it that I had the privilege to not address or not highlight as much. For me, when we talk about this subject, that was my real like, oh, I can't just cherry pick the part of it that does impact me enough, but really pick the full picture, the full perspective, the full full authentic selves for people, right? And so I know personally, this is an area that I haven't shown up as much as I want to.
It's hard because when I would want to pat myself on the back for stuff I'm doing, you know what I mean?
Like, which never feels right? Like it also doesn't feel right to do that. Yeah.
It doesn't. And you think when you think, well, I have done this now and I have done this now. And I thought I was the biggest champion for, in essence, our whole individuals and interactions. I got that down. I understand that. I'm an agilist. I teach people about that. I'm always making sure that happens. But I'm not, right, when I'm not recognizing a whole person. And I'm not holding space for a whole person. That's the challenge, is what do we do?
And I'll add to that for just a second.
Happen.
I'll add to that because it's not just holding space for that person. It's holding space for things you can't even comprehend that they may have endured or faced, right?
Yeah.
And so it's holding space beyond what you even know or can comprehend. And that is scary.
And that's you're right, because that's a whole nother level, right? Of what I'm going into a room now, right? Because obviously we're always talking to our corporate audience. You're going into a meeting now and you want a really productive meeting and you're talking about change, right? What are we going to do to make our organization be great for tomorrow? What can we do to help our employees? What can we do? And we're talking about this and putting programs into space. But when we put this program into place, we're not looking at everybody who's even sitting around the table.
Yeah, we do the majority. Well, it serves the majority. It's enough. Most people will like it. And the problem with that thought process is so often the same people keep getting hit in the minority.
Right.
It's the same people getting hit every single time. And sometimes that's just as a female in tech, but often then now layer that on as BIPOC in tech or as LGBTQ plus in tech as a female. More issues than what I'm just facing.
I'm going to put up, and we can keep talking, but I'm going to put it up so people can get an idea.
Oh yeah. Ooh, right. I like this.
Right. So you guys can you can go and research Kimberly Crenshaw. She's the person who brought this to the attention, the whole concept of intersectionality. And then here's what we're kind of talking about when we look at it, right? So that you can get a gist of what the heck do you all guys mean when you're talking about this stuff. We're looking at, here's the person in the middle, and that's the person that you see, here's your friend, here's your mate, here's your work colleague. But when they come into the room, there's all these things that are affecting them in some way or the other. So one of the things I was having a conversation about, funny enough, was age, right? Devon's doing a program at the moment about events, and there was a lady in there who is focusing in on age, the fact that when you're over 65, you still have stuff to offer and you still can be a professional and people can still look at you. There are people who are counted out because of age. Right. So that is an intersectionality. So if I'm a woman, right, and I'm 65, and then you add on that I may have a disability, and you add on that I can be Black, and then you add on that I can come from a poor neighborhood, right? Yeah. And maybe I self-educated myself, so I don't have all the traditional degrees, although I have achieved so much. Bam. I could possibly be triggered. Right. And feel like
not only could you be triggered,
I'm not worthy.
Yeah. Not only could you be triggered, but you're often I don't want to say overlooked. You're often not represented. You're often undervalued. You're often underappreciated, acknowledged, right? For the diversity and the viewpoints that all brings to the table, because it's not the majority.
No.
I mean, I can tell you, like, even looking at that chart, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And there are so many times that I'm sitting in the room and it doesn't even occur to me to think about some of those aspects.
No. But this is what we're
that's
talking about yeah, right. It is. And we tend to, and I know people who listen to this are probably going to have text and email, whatever.
We got to have at least one every so often. So
we got it, right? So when we talk about privilege, we tend very much only to put that in the class of white privilege. But what about career privilege that you've experienced, right? When you talk about somebody who's older now, what privilege are you standing in? Are you still standing in the privilege of youth? So therefore, in that case, you have you're not comprehending, you're not sensitive at all to what it is they can be going through.
I think whatever the majority is in each of those classes has a dynamic of privilege, right? Of certain things, whatever the majority is, like the cisgender, that's a majority. Right. And so there's the privilege is assuming firsthand everybody's straight.
That's it. Everybody must be. I'm sure they are. Everybody looks it, right? So we do that. Well, they all look. Everybody looks. When we're not sure, what does it look like? It's like the idea of saying nobody in this room has a disability. Well, not every disability is visible.
We did a thing about that in Agile 20. All it does is make me realize that we haven't had one in person in a while. It's making me super sad. Like 17 or 18, where a few people talked about their invisible disabilities, but how that impacts them and what that means. And especially in a community that is about individuals and interactions. And the hard part is, I'll hear this argument often from people and I will own that occasionally I'm like, there's so much and I just feel like I'm stepping in it all the time, or like I can't get it right. And I try and give myself grace. Like, it's human, right? We're all learning. Learning's tough. If it was easy, it wouldn't be in the comfort zone. It'd be in the comfort zone and it wouldn't be growing, right? But I think the other dynamic of it is we've expected the person that doesn't have the privilege to have to be the person that always speaks up and create that space, like meritocracy, just make your own room. And it's like, no. And I think that's what the Women's March really kind of taught me a lot about was, how do I create the space where it really is inclusion and not just, forget the fact that I haven't done any of that stuff. Just now get on board with this one because this is what's important. And it's like, no, I've got to create the right spaces that really represent that. And I think putting that onus more on the person that's in that state of privilege to create that space. And really, like, I might get it wrong. I might not do it perfectly, but am I making an effort and opening and continuing the conversation?
And I think that's what we need to help people to understand, that if you're making the effort, you're making a step. You may not have run the whole entire mile, right? But you're making a step. And the idea of having the conversations, even when it's difficult, is making the step.
Yeah.
Right. So we look at what happened with Sharon Osbourne the other day.
Oh,
right?
I just mentally went there myself.
I'm telling you with some of that, right? Because there's a conversation. That was a conversation we saw.
So hold up. For people who might not be familiar with this, okay? I'm not even sure. I don't watch it. I think it's called The Talk, right? Is that that's the name of the talk show?
I may even.
I don't even know. So two people that were on this talk show. They've been on it for a long time. One of them, Sharon Osbourne, white, from Britain, individual, and then Cheryl Underwood, Black, woman, both been on this talk for a long time. Sharon Osbourne ended up making a public statement in support of her friend, Piers Morgan. But in her public statement, she was not specific that she's choosing to stand by her friend, but she disavows or doesn't agree with what he said. She just said, I stand with Piers Morgan. He's not a racist. And to which her colleague...
I have it, so I can actually, let me share the screen. So everybody can see what we're actually talking about. So I'm going to about share the screen with you guys so you can see this particular thing that we are talking about, so you get the whole full gist of this. Is the wonderful thing about technology. We can just allow you to see it.
I don't know. It might make my stomach turn again to see it again.
Okay, but this is I'm going to show you the 4 minute. Well, there's a 3-minute version. I'm going to go 3-minute version. Okay, so everybody can see that.
Agree with what he said.
Okay, so let me pause her, and let's come over here. So then you guys, I can make sure you guys can see. Yes, everybody can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this.
With what he said, no. Everybody goes, if you support him, then you must be racist because he's racist. I'm not racist. Neither is Piers racist.
Sharon Osbourne says she's sorry following Wednesday's heated discussion about Piers Morgan on the talk.
And I think we should stop this. And don't try and cry, because if anyone should be crying, it should be me right now.
I'm talking to a woman who I believe is my friend, and I don't want anybody here to watch this and say that we're attacking you for being racist.
I think it's too late. I think that trade's already sown.
While the women of the talk barely addressed that debate during Thursday's show,
we are a TV family here. Sometimes we argue like we did yesterday, and sometimes we laugh. But we are back together again today.
Sharon did take to social media to apologize and further explain her point of view. The 68-year-old wrote in part, quote, "To anyone of color that I offended and or to anyone that feels confused or let down by what I said, I am truly sorry. I panicked, felt blindsided, got defensive, and allowed my fear and horror of being accused of being racist take over."
Now, I thought to myself, that part of my fear of being seen, because this is after the fact, right? So
yeah. And this was not even her immediate after apology. She trolled some people on Facebook initially. She was very doubling down initially. This was that apology note was a secondary later thing.
Right, way after kind of the fact. But what I found so interesting when we look at this whole thing, it's now so correct. She sat down, she sat down at this point with her PR people on this and kind of gone through this whole thing, right? We know that when we see it at that point. And that's the point that makes you think.
But I don't think it's correct.
No.
Because she doesn't apologize to Cheryl in it.
She hasn't. It's assumed that Cheryl should be just okay now, right? Now, I saw a thing that Cheryl had kind of just made in a note about, right? Because she hadn't really commented on it too much. And she's like, I've already forgiven her, which comes back again to remember what some shows ago, you and I spoke about the fact that a lot of the times the character that is inside of Blacks is very far more forgiving because of their religious connections. They don't want to hold anything against anybody because they don't want it to affect them. So they're fast on let it go, right? Because otherwise, if they keep holding on to it, even if it's justified, it will hurt them. Right. There was a piece. I did a thing last week, the Maya Angelou piece, where she was talking in her own words. She was 55 at the time and talking about her life experiences. This was an interesting, crazy thing she said. Right now, understand she was born in 1928. Okay. All right. So she said, as a little girl, she thought that white people were hollow, like physically hollow. So she was frightened of going close to them because she felt if she touched them, she'd disappear on their inside, because she believed they couldn't have anything on the inside and be so cruel. because what she had seen demonstrated was Black people always acknowledged everybody. They were always said some kind words, but these people were never kind. They were always horrible. So they couldn't have, and she used old style language, they couldn't have any innards and be that way. So when you think of, okay, that's a child, because that was the childhood reference, right? That's not the adult now one who understood and was in civil rights movement. That was her talking as what she thought as a child. And we come back to today. I heard it was something that kind of flashed across Instagram, and it was a young girl. So I would put the girl about in her, if anything, early 30s, more likely less than that. She said, America should be grateful that Blacks don't want revenge. They just want justice and equality.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's such a power. If you've never, for those watching, if you've never, haven't seen that video, it is one to watch because it is super powerful moment with it.
That's not asking for much, right? So then when you sit down on national television and you watch somebody who is older, so because with Sharon being 68 years old or whatever, right? And she may be older than that, not telling anybody, but let's just say she's at that age. She has most of her life, because her father was wealthy. She didn't grow up broke, right? So she has most of her life sat in that position where I can have whatever I want and I am the majority in the rooms. And the only thing she had to push against, and we can't say only because it is a push, is establishing herself as a female. But in establishing herself as a female, it was to be able to become equal to a white male. Right? So that was the pressure to come up to that spot.
It was really fascinating I watched this video and I couldn't look away from the calm that Cheryl had to be. The reassuring, right? And the comforting that she kept trying to offer Sharon. And it was fascinating to me because I did have a lot of white female friends who were like, but she was blindsided. So here's the hard part I have with that argument. And she even said, I panicked. I was blindsided. The executive set me up. You're on a talk show that talks about hot topics. BS. 2, you made a public Twitter tweet stand for your friend. Deal with it.
All of those on public.
Right?
You didn't have to. You could have called Pierce on the telephone.
Right. You wanted to make that stand, so now make the stand. You weren't blindsided. You weren't you made a point to make a stand, so now make your stand.
Right.
3, you were completely missing the point in terms of you can still be a friend with somebody, but you got to be really clear about calling out when inappropriate, what you agree with, what you don't, or you are supporting what they do. 4, when she told her not to cry, I almost came through my screen.
That was like, for me, when I watched that was the personification of white fragility. I was like, oh my gosh, if you're teaching this as a course, you can now go back and take a clip to demonstrate what she has been talking about in this book on national television. This is what she means.
But I think it hits to the intersectionality so well because some of my white friends went, but she was being attacked. She felt attacked. So she was lashing out. And I'm like, but she wasn't even considering what Cheryl was going through in that moment. Her friend. Right? And that's where, if you remember many shows ago when we talked about white women's tears, that's what it took for me to finally understand that concept was what I expect to do as a friend to somebody, right? And in that moment, she was completely disregarding her race, her culture, her, all the things that Cheryl was bringing to the table in regards to this topic, that it wasn't just, oh, I want to be mean to Sharon and pick on her because she likes Pierce. No, there were a lot of things she was being vulnerable with, even having this conversation about that
Mhm.
Sharon had the luxury of going, don't care, you were mean to me, so I'm going to tell you you can't cry. And even when I see her responses, and she's gone on a couple talks now, or a couple like shows since they put them on a hiatus, she's still playing the victim. She's still not really acknowledging that in that moment, she caused more harm than Pierce Morgan did, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. Yes. That is a really big statement because
I
Pierce
think
did
she
it to the
caused more
UK.
harm.
Right. Pierce did it in one country. You brought that from that country to another country.
To people that were your friends. Pierce was shouting out to strangers. You did it to your friend.
Yes, you did. Because even when Pierce was having the conversation with, oh God, I can't remember the dude's name now. It's gone.
I don't know. I don't watch Good Morning Britain either. So
I know. So they put it on YouTube. So he brought on the show that day another commentator who's black,
yes.
right? Or mixed race. Right, but he biracial is the correct term. So he was on the show with him, and he was like, but okay, yeah, I know you, but I need you to understand what it looks like.
Yeah.
Even if that's not on here in your heart, Pierce, everybody's seeing you now, and this is what you look like.
And
right?
Pierce just walks out. Which
Don't
isn't
wanna
good.
take it on.
And I think his word that he used was diabolical, that Pierce walked out, right? 100%.
Right.
But what Sharon did when she attacked, and then she was like, educate me, tell me. And it was that
demand, make me understand. I'm so sick of you people saying. And,
I will own Trisha of, let's say 5+ years ago, would have been crueler than Sharon was in that moment. I'm pretty sure. Because I wouldn't have been able to see it. I didn't consider those things, right? I didn't take it into consideration. And I think Sharon genuinely does feel like but I'm not a racist. And here's my thing for all white people out there. White people, please. If you've got to utter the words, I'm not a racist, chances are whatever you're doing in the moment is racist. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. But if you actually have to say the words, I'm not racist, you're not listening. Someone's giving you a gift by telling you something that you might be doing that's hurting them, that's causing some part of their intersectionality trigger and a pain. We've got to start listening to people more and not just go, well, my intent is good. It doesn't matter if your impact sucks.
That's gold, what you just said there, my darling. That is gold. It doesn't matter what your intention is if your impact sucks. That's going to be coined. That's going to be its own audiogram right there. That's it. That's awesome. You should say that again.
I think that's hard for a lot of people because we don't want to cause harm. I don't believe Sharon was trying to cause harm. I don't. I think she felt hurt in that moment. But the problem is in that quest of feeling hurt in that moment, you're causing so much more pain. And then you're doubling down afterwards. And the hard part for me is I don't like the binary, you're good or bad if you do things. I'll still do something stupid, racist, dumb tomorrow. I'm sure of it because I'm still learning. I'm still growing. There's so many things that I just don't even think about. Even using the words I stand with is ableist. And I'm still trying to break that habit and I struggle with it. Right. But on the same note, yes, it's natural to get defensive as a human first, but whatever we've got to start doing so that we can continue this conversation, because how much more powerful would it have been if they could have talked during that? But the minute you're like, educate me, tell me, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I don't blame Cheryl for starting to just like try and comfort her and calm her down because she's trying to be professional because she can't be the angry black woman. And it's like,
that's right, because those were all the things that were on the line. Those were all the things that were on the line for Cheryl. She had to think about, what if I tell her for real? Let me educate you. No, educating you now could cost me my job. I've worked hard to be in this chair. I want to keep my chair even after this. So even if this is hurting me, I will not show you that I am in pain. I am simply going to allow you to feel less pain.
Which is that like, and the sad part is she's like, you're my friend. And that just hurt my soul. It hurt my soul that.
And that was her trying to call out. She was trying to call out to Sharon. Hey, look. You know me. You know me. You know me. You know I'm not trying to harm you. You know me. But that anger, you know, that fright or flight that we talk about, the fright or flight is what she got into. So in that moment, she wasn't able to really be rational, although she was still asking for education. That was still in that fright or flight mode.
Yeah, but here's my thing is like, even in like when you say, you know me, right? Like, I think we've talked about this before, but I think this is actually another example of it, is like how many people think they have an intersectional friendship, right, with somebody, and reality is they don't really have a friendship. You don't know this person because they can never share their full self. They can never highlight certain things. Like I you know, whenever I always watch this on Twitter and things like this, when people are like, don't use me as your one black friend. Like you're like, we're an acquaintance, right? Or we're a coworker and we don't really know each other. You don't know me because I can't bring my full self. And I just, in that moment, it made me sad that here are two women who have been on colleagues and in an intense, high pressure kind of colleague visually for the rest of the world for years. I think that their friendship might not be as deep as and real. Like they couldn't have these kinds of conversations. That they'll have conversations about other people, but they can't have conversations about their own pain and dynamics. And for me, that's like, I always laugh when people, like, I don't let anybody on my Facebook page just because you know me. Like, I feel like I have to know you, right? And so I always laugh when like a neighbor pings me on my Facebook page. And so I accept it. And then they're like, well, if you don't like something I say, just scroll by. And I'm like, no, that's not how I am in friendships. Like, I don't just go, oh, there's some hate, I'll just pass on by. Like, no, I'm going to engage in it or we're not friends and get off my page. Like, so it really drew to me how many people think they have friendships through intersectionality when in reality they know somebody. They don't really give that space, kind of going full circle to what we were talking about earlier, for that full person. Where Cheryl couldn't say, it's me, you know me, because I don't know Sharon really does.
No, that's you know, wow. I think that's really
sad.
Wow, that is really sad, especially if somebody would refer to somebody as a friend and you would think you have never touched this particular topic.
Right? I mean, how long did it take for us to hit this topic? Like, I mean, I think we were doing it in this first couple events. Actually, did we do it during Dean's class?
Yeah, there was that when we were walking down to go back and forth to where the hotel stuff was, they were talking like, and you were like, you know, it's this whole bully thing. I can't stand with these bullies. And people did, the conversation was always like kind of an ongoing situation. But I think, again, I'd been doing an IC Agile course for the past, I guess, 4 or 5 days. Right. And there was a spot of reflection where the question was asked, when you are learning, what is it that makes your learning environment, in your reflection, what is it that fosters your ability to learn? And I said, oh, fun. I love having fun. Right. And then having fun. And I said, and then moments where I can have an aha. And then, you know, you're having a coaching session. So Diggs goes, what do you mean by a moment you can have an aha? And I said, a moment where I can allow myself to really swallow something. And he goes, what does that look like for you? I said, a moment where I can be vulnerable and I can come from behind the walls so I'm safe. And he said, what do you mean by safety? And when he said that, I had like 3 6 back steps. I'm like, what the hell do I mean by safety and training? What the hell am I talking about here? And then as he dwelled deeper, I realized, because I made this statement, normally when I go to a professional training, I have to decide which persona I will be. And then I learn from that persona, and that takes energy, being the persona I've had to pick for whatever place, versus when I can just be my authentic self. When I'm able to feel safe enough, I can be my full authentic self, which means I get a deeper learning now because I don't have so many guards up. But if he had never gone that deep, I wouldn't have even known I do that.
I actually realized I totally do it when I was taking the CRR Global, and somebody was like, well, I want you to do this. And I'm like, that's not who I'm here to be today. And literally were the words that came out of my mouth. Like, I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do right now. That's not who I'm trying to be right now.
Yeah, so think about it. It slipped out of your subconscious, so you audibly heard it. If he hadn't dug right, I wouldn't have known that really is something I've been doing all these years when I go to corporate training.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
so we keep
even
telling people to be vulnerable.
Well, think about it. I mean, Lizzie, I'll put you on the spot and ask this question for a second. It's like, think about the times that you've been in the workplace or even in the Agile community. How many people in let's say the Scrum community, and don't go specific on me, okay? Like, we don't want any hate mail or anything like that, right? But like, let's say the Scrum community, how many people, if they went, oh, I'm friends with Lizzie, would you actually go, yeah, that's a friend? Right? Like, how off balance?
The truth is, time has proven to me very few. And that's almost sad, but it makes sense to me now, because when you think about, when you go to a place where your friends are, right? You go, you hang out with them, you chill out with them, and you can just be you, right? And I've noticed every event I've gone to, right? Put aside being, it's only me or Devon that looks like us, and if Devon hasn't shown up, it's just me. Then, you put that aside, there's still not been places where I just feel like I go sit down and talk with people or join in a conversation unless I'm really pulled in, which has fostered the introvert in me. Right? So it's so you morph. You actually become this morph on a consistent basis. So you perfect morphing.
Yeah, but other people will think that they have a relationship.
Other people
with
think
you
they will. They will, absolutely. And they don't, because I've never shown up. They've never actually met me.
But it makes me then go, how many people in, like, when I think of society as a whole, right? Like, as that example is like, yeah, I have a Black neighbor. I'm not racist. It's like, you don't, like, you're offending that neighbor every single day, and you don't know it because
you have no idea.
Right? And
I think one way people can judge, because I've been using this lately, right? And I've been saying to people, when I connect with you, when I make an intentional connection with you, I should be willing to have you sit at my table and I feed you food. If I'm not willing to have you sit at my table, in my house, sit at my table and I cook and feed you, you are not a friend. Not to me. Now, I may be a friend to you, but you're not a friend to me.
But I think this goes back to the whole intersectionality of, like, can I show up my whole self, right? I'm comfortable to share my son Connor with you. I'm comfortable to, talk about my family and different dynamics and how I grew up and things like that. Now, I'm a pretty open person that I talk about a lot of things pretty out there, right? But yet there are still certain things that, like, I remember sitting in a hotel room during an Agile conference once and highlighting a really, like, private, painful kind of historical thing, a trigger for me. And I said it so casually, like, that actually Ronica Roth went, wait, can you back up there? Like, because I was so comfortable, like, these are my friends, I can just share that, right? And there's so many times that I think in the workplace, we do have surface level relationships that we present as deeper than they are. And then we are unable to carry on these conversations because we haven't put in the time and the investment to be able to avoid the fight or flight reactions, to not feel embarrassed when I say something dumb, and to be able to give more grace to the other person that their intent is in a good place, right? As we not excuse it, not avoid it, but to be able to not want to rip your face off when you say something.
Right. But that's because you've gone past. Your intention is not invisible because I know you. When I don't know you, your intention is totally invisible, right? What is worse, if you've said something, the wrong thing, you can't even talk to me about your intention because I'm going to think you're lying, because there's no trust established. So the
to one side, there could be this trust, right? Like, that's the fascinating thing, is like, when we're dealing with intersectionality, for the majority, I think there were so many times that I can even think back in the past of saying, oh yeah, no, there was trust. And it's like, no, that person had a persona, had a code shifting, switching going on, had different things that I hadn't earned an actual deep relationship with yet. And yet I was coming from that place.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I go back to the concept of, I can be a friend to you, but you're not a friend to me. Yeah. And if we've never discussed the concept of the relationship, what do we have together? There's no true clarity for anybody to really know the truth of what exists.
Which then you don't know the pain.
Because you don't. One of the things I've started doing, I started doing it last year, but I've become a lot more intentional this year. And I think maybe it's the whole age thing as well that's come about, right? Is that
COVID, age, all of it together. Who cares anymore? It's like, bring it on.
Right. I have actually started telling people who they are to me. Oh. So to me, you are this. Is that okay with you being that to me? And who am I to you?
It's all part of the conversation.
Right. So it's kind of part of my evolution as a person. It's something I'm doing. And when people touch my heart, I'm letting them know. Thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm not misemotional telling you.
I know, that's where I got even emotional knowing you're doing that.
I'm not. So when I say it or I text it, it takes a lot for me to say, I just want you to know I appreciate you. That's a huge for me. But if somebody doesn't know me, they don't know that's how huge that is for me, and how vulnerable I'm being in that moment, in coming to you and saying, I thank you, I appreciate you. That's huge for me. But you wouldn't know that if you don't know me. And most people never get, which is why I play with this word all the time, intimacy. They never get into me to see me, because that takes work and that takes effort. Now, we're not saying in corporate America you're going to have intimacy with everybody in the bloody room. Nobody's asking to have intimacy.
You know what?
I just want to make sure I clarify that. I am not saying, right, corporate America, you should be an intimate space. No. Roll it back. Lizzie did not say that. I am telling you, you should be an inclusive space where you're consciously making the effort to recognize the people so they know they are seen, they are heard, and they are respected. That's what I'm asking you to do in the corporate space. Let people know they're seen.
They bring a lot of different things to the table, right? Yes. Like, their whole self comprises many different factors and things that you may not be aware of that they're processing or dealing with in that moment. I cannot tell you how many people were like, my coworkers not coming to work right after George Floyd's murder. And I was like, how are you shocked that person, like, no, of course they're not okay right now. And yet I think there's that privilege of being able to kind of ignore that other people might be dealing with some of these challenges that come with intersectionality.
Right. And there, I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people had to take that time out was for a real good reason too, because could you imagine going in as raw as you feeling? And somebody say the wrong trigger thing to you?
I think the personas can't stay up with that. And that's why a lot of people...
Because the energy it takes to hold the personas, you can't hold the persona and have one element of your intersectionality be crushed. If you think about them as even like their measures You know, where you architects build buildings, right? And the pillars, they hold different weights of the building at different times, right? Well, if you think about every single one of them are currently experiencing a shock wave, it's gonna put stuff off balance.
Yep.
Creativity is going to be messed up in that space. Me thinking right, being able to be extremely strategic is not going to happen if one of my augments that make me up are off. And that's the reason why it's important, I think, for corporations to start investing in coaches being on site to help people and go into sessions and facilitate them so that you can build a habit of creating atmospheres that hold space for the whole person.
Yeah.
Because that is not going to come overnight. That's going to take intentional work and budget.
Well, and
make that
also
happen.
building back of trust. Like, there's so many people that make the stupid comment, it's business, it's not personal. First of all, that's from a fictional movie. Second of all, it was about the mob. Stop quoting it as a business best practice. Stop. Like, it's not okay. But I think there's a lot of like, I don't trust to be vulnerable at work. I don't trust to do that. Even when I don't even play in all the intersectionality dynamics, it's like, that's tough to bring. I think Race mentioned that earlier, is it's tough to bring your whole self. It's not always easy. And I've got to do personally a better job of remembering, as hard as it is for me to bring my whole self, that it's even harder for many other people because of all of the different things that they're bringing that I have some privilege in.
We take the place you always get hurt or most triggered by are the organizations you've trusted to be different.
Yeah. Or people.
Because in your mind, you assume, well, you're not like everybody else. So you do see me, you do appreciate me, you do understand me. I am safe in this space. When the organizations you trust show that they're not, right, who you thought they were, and that they're not seeing you and they're not respecting you and they're not holding space for you as a whole person. That's the part that's hard, because then it becomes even harder for that individual to build trust in any other organization. Because if the one I really thought was really here for me, they were really making space for me, and then you're like, psych, no, they're not. They're like all the others. Then my judgment's wrong. Oh my God, I don't know when people are really for me or not. And the whole nother wall.
Spiral. And I think there's so much baggage too. I even feel it sometimes as a woman in tech, but like there's that, oh, they're not really here for me, and they are, but I'm overanalyzing something. Like, I haven't heard from them in a couple months. It's like, no, nobody's heard from her in a couple months, but like, I'll start like feeding into something because I'm just expecting it too. So sometimes even when there's not an issue, I'll create an issue.
Right. It's easy. I mean, we recently had one with Women in Agile.
Oh, right? Did
you? Because when you look at Women's Day, the video that went out didn't have any Black women included to celebrate International Women's Day. Now, as much as there was an apology and stuff, there were still some people in the community very hurt by that. And that's going to take work on Women in Agile's part to build a trust level back for those people to trust now Women in Agile, right? The way they used to. Because that kind of oversight, in essence, just goes back and it pulls back all the work that has been done last year. So it's like you're starting all over again. And here's the thing, the question that is,
to be fair, I did not watch I have to even own that I didn't watch the video at all. So I'm like, I feel like I need to own that, because I was like, I haven't commented on that or done anything because I didn't watch the video. So I have to own that.
So that's okay. We can't watch everything, right? So I hadn't watched the video at the time. It was brought to my attention. And so then I had to go watch it, right? But there's work now. And the question, here's the big question that's out there for our organization is, are you going to be willing to do the work now? Or will you not care to do the work because it's no longer a media item? which is why we're having this show consistently to let's continue the conversation, because even when it's no longer a media topic, even when it's not in the news, even when there's not the fear of being socially shamed for something, for you to have to do something, now it's about your intention of, are you who you said you were, and will you do the work necessary?
Yeah.
Because it's a continuous, it's a forever working on this thing. It's a forever.
And from the individuals that I know involved in Women in Agile, and again, I know there's different chapters and things. I have high trust and belief that this will be a learning and a growth, and that work will be done from every indication that I have. But the sad part is that's part of it is the question. Right? Like the question even has to be there. So we're at our time already again.
We are at our time. There is a comment I want to show though, because I thought it was an awesome comment. And I think he may have gone already.
Oh,
Ray
yeah.
said,
Hi, Ray.
He said, I used to sit next to the entrance to my company and watch people put on their badge. Their face and demeanor would change. So putting on the badge was them transforming into who they were now going to be for that day. Isn't that sad? Right. But that is such a pivotal. It's like for them, that was their trigger. Okay, put it on. Badges on. Hey, how are you?
Or in some cases, it wasn't even, hey, how are you? You're like, okay, get through it. Just get through it. Like
5 o'clock. We got like, and then we can punch out. So, it's,
I'm stopping to think if I've ever had that. And I've been pretty lucky that I've got one company. One company, but I was only there for like a year. So but other than that, like I've been really lucky where I haven't had that. It's so
absolutely hard. I recall several organizations, getting out of my car was okay. Once I put my foot out the door, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. I've only had that for one company. And so I feel very grateful for that.
Yeah. Really but grateful. Our hope is in doing the show, right, is that people won't have to do this switching or have to put something else on, because they will be able to be all the sections that they are wherever they are, whenever they're there. That is our hope, right? So we're asking you to pay attention to your environments, to look out for them, and be the person there that's opening a door and holding space for people to at least be, as we said at the very least, is included, respected, and seen. Right? You can start loving and liking them later. Like that's the next level. Right? Well, let's start with the first level so that we start to change our corporate spaces. But it means we're going to have conversations. When we're not seeing the things happen, hold space for those conversations and have a conversation you wouldn't have thought of having before. Right? We kind of double dog dare you. Have the conversation. It won't be as bad as you thought it would be. And it will help you to have another conversation after the first one, right?
Because that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. So closing remarks, Trish, go ahead.
Oh, I don't have any. I liked yours. Yours were great closing remarks. Why would we add to that? Come back again. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
We will be back in 2 weeks. Yes, we will. I'm going to pop up the dates. Here are the dates so you guys can remember them.
We will be back.
Yeah, we will be back Thursday, April the 1st. We will be here April the 15th, April the 29th.
Actually be there. It won't be like an April Fool's joke or anything.
No, we will actually be here April 1st, right? Because we are here every 2 weeks. And we do invite you. Now we have a podcast. We are inviting you. If you want to be a guest on the show or know somebody who might be a great guest, please have them send us an email. We've got an email box now. Let's continue the conversations at Gmail. So you can email us there and we will get back at you. And we want you to follow the movement. Start a movement where you are, right? You can find us on Instagram. And there's the email again. Start having conversations. Let us know how the conversations are going when you're having them. If you want some tips, like talk to us about what you're trying to do to make things better so that everywhere the conversation can start going. Contact us on LinkedIn. We are there. I still haven't quite figured out the link thing for our LinkedIn, so I'm sorry. I'm going to get with that program. But we do want to thank you for being here with us today, for watching us as we continue on our mission of helping people understand they can have a conversation, regardless of the color of the skin, regardless of their gender choice, regardless of their culture and where they are. A conversation is always possible, right? It may not always feel doable, but it's always possible. So you just got to do the work and grab the courage to have the conversation. So thank you guys for being here with us. Have a great rest of the week and keep talking. Take care, everybody.
Bye.